Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1992 comedy White Men Can't Jump. Now, this is the second sports comedy that director Ron Shelton did after Bull Durham. I would have to say, off of my recollection of Bull Durham, I am a much bigger fan of White Men Can't Jump than that movie. And White Men Can't Jump is definitely a much better film than Ron Shelton's other sports sort of comedy he did after this, Play It to the Bone, which was a boner of a motion picture. Now, this is honestly a really entertaining, fun movie. And I don't know if I'd call it underrated because it does have a pretty big following. I mean, it got its own pair of shoes, so with quotes from the film on it. So I don't think this is a film that isn't it's not one of those movies that isn't very well known. It's not a film that's forgotten about, but it definitely is the best film with Wesley and Woody Harrelson as co-stars, and I can see why people really like the dynamic between these two. They really love the chemistry. They like seeing these two in films because they really do play off each other really well. They played off each other really well even in bit roles in the film Wildcats with Goldie Hawn. So this is actually a really great casting choice. Now, it wasn't originally planned that way, though. Originally, they wanted the director, Ron Shelton, he wanted Denzel Washington to play the role of Sidney Dean, but Denzel wasn't able to do it, so they went with Wesley. Woody Harrelson wasn't the first choice to play Billy Hoyle. She was Doyle. No, it's Hoyle. Yeah, I was right. I corrected myself, and then I corrected myself again. Oh, I was right the second time. But anyway, he's Billy. Woody Harrelson was not the first choice to play Billy Hoyle. They had Keanu Reeves. He came in for an audition, and apparently he sucked at basketball, so that's why he wasn't cast in the film. Charlie Sheen was approached, but didn't do it, and so they decided to go with Woody. And Woody actually showed that he actually could play basketball, and out of the two, Woody was the better basketball player, which is surprising, right? But yeah, apparently he was the better basketball player. Rosie Perez was an actress that they were kind of leery of casting because she was of Puerto Rican descent, or she was a Latin actress, and I don't know why they were having questions like that, but apparently, which is honestly pretty racist, but apparently they apologized later and everything was resolved. But yeah, for some reason they were leery of casting her, and I have no idea why, but eventually they ended up casting her, and the rest is history, because she was just perfect for the role that she was in, and she was one of the best things about the film, and was a really great, strong character that you really didn't see that much in films at the time or previously, or really nowadays, to see this kind of strong female character who is still vulnerable, who still has flaws, who still has these issues. She isn't perfect. She isn't a cookie cutter perfect strong woman. There's more to her character than that, and I thought that was really inspired, and the back and forth that she has with Woody is great, and they also have wonderful chemistry, Rosie and Woody, and it's a flawed romance, but it's a realistic romance, and it's one that I think is one of the best that I've seen on film. That's what makes the ending so sad, is that Billy wasn't able to make it work out between him and Gloria. They were clearly two people that really loved each other, but she decided to leave him because he just could not change, and she tried time and time again to make him see the light, but he just wasn't able to do that. It also has a really solid supporting cast. I mean, you got Tyra Farrell, who plays Rhonda Dean, Sydney's wife. Silk Kozar plays Robert. Kadeem Hardison, who you might know. He's been in a few films. He was in this as George, one of the guys that hangs around Wesley Snipes' character. He's basically just a mouthy guy who hangs out and plays basketball. Nigel Miguel, if I could say the name, Nigel Miguel as Dwight the Flight McGee. He was actually a draft pick for the New Jersey Nets around the time. Freeman Williams plays Duck Johnson. Lewis Price plays Eddie the King Faru. Marcus Johnson plays Raymond. Marcus Johnson was actually a NBA player. He actually played in the NBA. And you also have Alex Trebek as himself, which is so surreal to see Alex Trebek and that whole Jeopardy set and everything in this film. The film is based on a screenplay by Ron Shelton, who also wrote the script. You know, he wrote the script based on a story by Ron. So he himself was apparently a basketball street hustler. Like, he actually played basketball and hustled people for money. So he thought that would make a interesting film, and he's right. I mean, this is one of those films that shows this sort of seedier, kind of dark, or not really dark, but it shows a seedier, rawer side of basketball. You know, there's not very many films in this particular genre that show street basketball or show this rawer side of basketball or sports films in general. So a lot of them are cookie cutter, a lot of them play it safe, and this film doesn't do that. It's rough around the edges, and that's honestly a good thing. So it's one of the reasons why the film was so well received and still has such a big cult following to this day, because of the fact that it is more of a raw, more real, more genuine type of basketball movie that also focuses on street basketball. So that alone also makes it stand out from the rest of the basketball films out there. Ron Shelton's direction is really dynamite. It's dynamite. It's dynamic. I keep using that kind of word because it fits the film really well. It's a very dynamic looking movie. It's a very dynamic film with its cast and their interactions with each other, and it's a very dynamic film in terms of its direction. It's got this power to it, this life, this energy that you can see on the screen in the basketball scenes, in even in the scenes where it's just moments between the characters, you know, just character building moments between Rosie Perez's character, Gloria, and Woody Harrelson's character, Billy, the moments between the two and things like that. And even the sort of smoldering back and forth kind of thing that goes on with Wesley and Woody in the film. They don't start out as buddies at first. You know, it's a relationship with these two characters that's got a lot of hurdles. They go through a lot of hurdles before they learn to respect each other and become friends. There's a lot of things that happen between the two that end up really straining their relationship. Woody gets hustled, you know, by Wesley, and it's just this whole sort of back and forth sort of thing. But ultimately, they both earn mutual respect for each other, and Wesley ends up being ends up being the one that's there for him in the end, because he doesn't have Gloria anymore. So yeah, all of that is a testament to the screenplay, which is it is a really great script. To take something that is as simple as just a game of basketball and these two characters who meet up and they decide to team up and hustle other basketball players, and then everything becomes a little bit, the stakes get bigger in terms of relationships and things like that. It wasn't really a question of whether or not they were going to win the game in the end of the movie. It really wasn't a question of whether or not they were going to win the games that they played in. It just felt like they were going to win, and what really was a big question was, were they going to be able to survive the streets? Were they going to be able to keep their relationships intact with their loved ones. That's the main question I felt. I was never really like, man, are they going to win the game in the end? Or that seemed immaterial. It seemed like the bigger win, the bigger game was the game of life. And you could argue that Billy lost. He lost. Even though he won at the end, he still lost because he lost Gloria and he lost one of the best things about his life. The best things in his life, he lost. All for a basketball game. But he did it out of respect for Sydney, and he just felt like that was the best decision, and ended up not working out because of previous decisions that he made in his life. I actually like the ending because it's an ending that really does show you not everything is going to end the way that you want it. You're not always going to get things that you want, and life isn't always fair. And that's definitely true in this case, but at least you still have your friends. And it was more than likely, in all honesty, it's probably better that they separated anyway, because they weren't good for each other. They both deserved... I mean, Rosie Perez's character, Gloria, definitely deserved better. I don't know if Woody deserved better. You could say that his character, Billy, was out of his league with her anyway. So, maybe he deserves someone that's more in his league, other than Gloria. But, he tried. He tried to keep it together, but he wasn't able to. He kept making the same mistakes. She also tried to keep the relationship together, but she realized he kept making the same mistakes and just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So it makes sense. And also, of course, a lot of people don't really focus on that when they think of White Men Can't Jump. They don't think of the drama and the relationships and all of that. They think about the dialogue, and it is a very great film for that. I mean, there's just some really great bits of trash-talking dialogue, which I don't know if I can really credit Ron Shelton for that, because apparently he just had a lot of the people on the set just improvise stuff. Kadeem Hardison delivered the best ones, but they could not be shown on the film because they would have made the movie NC-17. But yeah, I mean, it's got some really hilarious bits of trash talking between the basketball players, between the streetball players. Stuff like this. Junior and George are going back and forth with each other, and they're on the Venice Beach basketball courts in the beginning. It's like, your mother's so poor, I saw her kicking cans, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said, moving. Your mother's so old, she used to drive chariots at high school. Your mother's so fat that when she fell over, she broke her leg and gravy poured out. I told your mother to act her age, and the bitch dropped dead. So that's pretty funny. And then Sydney is insulting Billy because he doesn't know him that well in the beginning of the film. He's just trying to hustle him, and because Billy was hustling him, and he just could not believe what was going on. So he's trying to give him shit, and so he's insulting Billy, and he's like, "Doesn't this guy look like one of those motherfuckers from the Brady Bunch?" And Junior's like, "Yeah, he looks like Cindy, the youngest one in curls." So, that energy is just great. I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I love, that kind of fun, energetic trash talking anyway. But probably my favorite stuff is when Billy is trash talking the teams at the 2-on-2 tournament. And he's trash talking the specific team and just getting on this guy's nerves. He's trying to piss him off because not all guys play good when they're mad. And so he's antagonizing Spike and Willie. And he's all like, "What? You still throwing up bricks? What is this, a Mason's convention? What? Clank! Clank! I need like a welding torch to play in this league. I got an idea. Let's stop right now and gather up all these bricks and let's build a shelter for the homeless so maybe your mother will have the place to live." It's just a lot of fun. The trash talking, the back and forth, the relationship, the repertoire that that goes back and forth between Wesley and Woody. It's like, I'm in the fucking zone. I'm in the fucking zone, man. So yeah, and white men can jump, because you see that by the end of the movie, because Woody actually does dunk at the end. Now apparently, the rim was lowered, so yeah, he needed the rim to be lowered before he could really dunk the ball, but he still technically dunked. He still technically jumped and dunked the ball. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people remember this for the just great lines of dialogue, and understandably so. And it's just a really fun movie. It also has a great soundtrack, great choice of music. I like the whole emphasis on these three guys who hang out on the side of the street and they sing. I like the emphasis on that. They're really good singers too. So that kind of adds a nice dynamic. I love how the opening credit, it's not even the opening credits, it's the 20th Century Fox logo. When it starts up in the beginning of this film, it has this sort of hip-hop remix of the 20th Century Fox theme. So, I mean, that also makes the film stand out in a good way. And yeah, Ron Shelton's direction it's just got this great style to it, and flair. I mean, even just simple stuff of just Woody coming to the basketball court early, laying down on the basketball, and then the next scene is there's a great shot where it ends up dissolving into the next scene, and you have this shot from a POV shot of Woody looking up at the rim. I mean, just subtle stuff, just stuff like that just really makes the film stand out. It's just one of those films where it's very simple, it's very straightforward, the plot isn't very convoluted, and that's a good thing. You know, sometimes it's just nice to sit down and watch a movie with like this, like White Men Can't Jump, where it's just a very straightforward, simple plot. You got these two characters. You got Woody Harrelson's character, Billy Hoyle, who's a street hustler, who's hustling people. He hustled people in the past in basketball. He's moved to California, to Venice Beach. He's going to try to do it again here because he can't do it anymore over where he used to live because, people have caught on. And so he looks like this kind of dweeb. He looks like this loser. He's this kind of scrawny-looking white guy. Who would ever think he could play? And that he gets involved with Sidney Dean, played by Wesley Snipes, who is the king of the basketball courts in Venice Beach. And he's bragging about, he's all braggadocious, and he's got this attitude. He's like, I'm so pretty, so pretty. It ain't easy being this good. I think. I'm trying to remember exactly what he says. I don't think it's something like that, but it's just so it's hard. It's hard making it's hard. I think it's something like that. Damn it! I fucking forgot the line of title. So there are other great lines. So I know some people are probably getting on my case, what, you don't remember that line? Yeah, I don't remember that line. I'm not entirely sure on everything. I saw the film last night, and I haven't seen the film over and over again like a lot of fans of this film have, so forgive me. But anyway, yeah, so Wesley plays this braggadocious character who's got this attitude, and Woody ends up hustling him. In order to get his money back, he tries to get him to, he tries to get him into another hustle where he's like, all right, let's do best of 5 shots, best of 4 shots. If you miss, you lose all the money type deal. But Woody's character, Billy, ends up winning. And so that upsets Sidney, but he sees some potential, some money-making potential with Billy, so he decides to take him on, not really take him under his wing, but he decides to lend a hand in partnership, and they team up and they start hustling some other basketball players, in the area, and all the while you have this sort of this relationship that Billy's trying to maintain with his girlfriend, Gloria, played by Rosie Perez, she's studying all these different almanacs and stuff because she wants to get on Jeopardy. That's one of her main goals, and because she wants to get them out of debt, because they have this debt to these kind of mafia type guys, and they're $8,000 in debt. And so Billy moved here because he felt he could make some extra money hustling, so they could help pay off the debt. And things get a little complicated when Sydney hustles Woody. He hustles Billy, but then Gloria comes in and confronts Sydney's wife and tells her, we got to make this work out because that was my money. And this is breaking some kind of the rule between partners. You don't hustle your partner. And of course Wesley's like, you smoke, you get smoked. And then the agreement is made that they're going to play together in the 2-on-2 tournament that's taking place with a $5,000 prize. They end up winning the tournament, and there's this sort of more strife because Billy ends up making a mistake by betting his half in basically a game of I Can Dunk, where the only player is Billy, and Sydney's just watching, and Billy isn't able to dunk, so then he gives all of his money that he won from that tournament to Sydney, and he eventually manages to do the impossible and make a half-court shot, hook shot kind of thing, in order to get one of Sydney's friends to let his girlfriend Gloria on Jeopardy. She's just an absolute whiz at the game, and he manages to win her back over. She lends him some money. He screws up and decides to take that money and go to a court where they're the original OG street hustler basketball players are there, and there's these guys who are legends in the community, and they've been gone for a long time, and they came back, and there's big money at stake. You can make a lot of big money playing these two guys 2-on-2, and Gloria, she basically makes the stipulation is if you use my money, I'm gonna leave you. That's just it, and that's what she ends up doing. She says goodbye to Billy, and that's it. They don't get back together. And the whole sort of the reason why Billy did that with Sydney is because Sydney had something happen where he was in his apartment, somebody broke in and stole a bunch of stuff, and he really wanted to make money so he and his wife could get out of the apartment that they were in. And Woody owed Wesley after Wesley helped him out a little bit. So there was a sort of back and forth where they it was kind of he did it, Billy decided to do this for Sydney out of respect. And they play the original hustlers, and they beat them, and they double their money, and that's pretty much how the film ends, because they beat the original hustlers, they win the money. Gloria doesn't come back. Sydney basically has a talk with Woody, with Billy, and says, hey, you just should have listened to the woman, and maybe it was the best for the both of you to separate from each other. And Woody decides, Billy decides, I'm going to get a job, and the film ends with them kind of going back and forth trash talking each other before they're going back to the basketball court. But yeah, it's a very straightforward, simple plot, and I like that. there's not a lot of, there's a few twists and turns, but nothing that's too like out of left field. So yeah, I mean the plot. Sometimes it's nice to just watch a movie like this, where it doesn't really have a lot of like, wow, all these different plots within a plot and all these twists and turns, and it doesn't have anything like that, and it doesn't need it. It's got a great pace to it. It's 115 minutes, and it goes by like a breeze. Like somebody, just going by somebody on the court, and swinging up and going for a jam. It's a really well edited movie by Kimberly Ray and Paul Sidor. The cinematography by Russell Boyd, I thought was really good as well, because it does bring out a lot of the kind of beauty of there is a certain. I mean, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to believe, but there is a certain kind of beauty to the inner city in these kind of places. It's kind of run down. I mean, maybe it's not maybe beauty isn't the right word, but there is a certain art to it. There's a reason why graffiti art is respected by some artists. There's a reason why there's things like this kind of what somebody might look at as junk. Some people look at it as art, and it's just there's a certain kind of it's hard to explain, but when you see the film, you know what I mean. It really does make the city like something that it's seedy, it's dark, it's dingy. You don't want to be there. It's grimy, but it adds a lot of atmosphere to the film. It doesn't look like a really clean film, and it just has this kind of grungy look to it, which is really great, and it fits with the film really well. The film was a huge hit when it came out. It made $90 million in the US. I don't believe it cost that much, so it did a fairly good job in the box office. Another thing I like about it, I like the music. I think it's got some great songs in it. You got a Jimi Hendrix in the soundtrack. You got some nice other covers of some of these older songs. I think James Brown he's featured heavily in the soundtrack, and even like some of the original songs I enjoyed as well. I really don't have that many problems with the film. Pretty much everything about the movie, I thought was a win. I thought the film is victorious in a lot of ways. I mean, it's in the fucking zone most of the time. I have some minor issues with it. The whole stuff with the mafia subplot, I mean, I didn't bring this up in another review of another movie, but it's just these kind of things. The mafia subplot, when they're in debt and they got these people who are trying to give them their money, they need their money back. It's just that kind of subplot just feels like it's just a lazy thing. It's just a lazy thing by the screenwriters. It's we need a subplot. Oh, they're in debt. They have some guys going after them. This kind of thing you've seen a ton of times, so it's really hard for it to really stand out. But this is one of the ones that at least tries to stand out, because you have this whole sort of thing where it doesn't seem like these are like really. They aren't like really gangsters that are really these big guys that are really dangerous, or people in the community or other gangs or other gangsters take seriously, because they have to take pictures of their supposed victims and put them in a book, but a lot of them are fake. So I mean, that touch did help a little bit, but still, I mean, the whole sort of on the run thing I didn't really care about that. It's just a little tiny nitpick. I mean, just that kind of stuff. It's hard for a film to really get that right. A lot of times it just feels like filler. I felt that I love the back and forth, and I keep using the word dynamic because it's perfect. It's a perfect word to use to describe the relationship between Sydney and Billy in the film. I love the dynamic between them, but I really do. I felt that there could have been a couple extra scenes to really solidify their friendship, because it kind of felt like it still felt like they were kind of antagonistic towards each other, and not the friendly kind of antagonistic. It just felt like, to me, it kind of felt like Sidney would screw Woody over. He would screw Billy over sooner or later. It just kind of felt like there really wasn't. He had a soft spot for him if he's down in his luck, and he wanted to help him out. But it felt like if he had the chance, he might screw him over again. And that's probably just me, but it just didn't really feel like it was a very solidified friendship. It felt like they're building it, they're working towards it, but I didn't feel like it was a super strong thing. I mean, especially after, Sidney hustled Billy earlier. He then took his money when he had the bet that Billy was going to dunk. I understand. If I was a friend in that situation, I wouldn't take that bet. And I also wouldn't, and even if he wasn't able to dunk, I'd probably just say, no, keep your money, man. I'm not going to take your money. This is not really your money anyway. This is your woman's money. This is, we did this for her, take your money, man. I understand he had to do that in order to learn a lesson, and so on, and so forth. But you could have done it differently. Like, maybe he's not able to dunk, but, Wesley's like, keep your money, man. It's for your wife. That's why we did this whole thing. We did it for Gloria. And then maybe Woody would try to gamble it or something. Billy would try to gamble it and lose it that way or something. He could still learn a lesson, but it doesn't necessarily have to. It just felt like that was another moment where Wesley was kind of like, fuck this dude, I'll just take his money. It was just one of those things. It was just, and then the back and forth they have in the tournament, and then the stuff that they had, the little scuffles they have when they're going off against the original hustlers. It's just one of those things that just like, it's just the big guys, the big two, Duck and company. It was just one of those things. I mean, it just didn't really feel like, man, yeah, these guys are like amazing, like really, really good friends. But it's just a little thing. It's just a little thing. And if I had the opportunity to have it where Billy would make it work with Gloria, I'd do that too, because they're a great couple. But I still respect the decision the film made, and I think it's actually a pretty good decision in the long run. But if I had my druthers, I would have had them get back together. But other than that, I mean, I don't really have any issues with the film. I think it's a really fun, high-flying, entertaining movie with some great one-liners, some great trash talk, really fun performances by the cast that really does get the most out of a lot of them. I mean, if Woody didn't do this, he'd probably be just known as a Cheers guy, because this is a big film for him. And thankfully it was a hit, and thankfully he was able to go on to do other films. He probably wouldn't have ever done something like Kingpin if it wasn't for the success of White Men Can't Jump. So it definitely did have a ripple effect for Woody Harrelson's career. It's definitely one of my favorites of Woody Harrelson has done, as well as Rosie Perez and Wesley Snipes, and it's definitely one of the best basketball movies that I've seen, and I would love to add this to my collection someday on Blu-ray. But anyway, I don't know what else to say about White Men Can't Jump, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, duh. I mean, jeez, what did I go into? What did I decide to go in the hole against Wesley and get my ass knocked out or some shit? Like, fuck, come on, think. But yeah, if I were to rate this film out of 5 stars, I give it 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, there's little minor issues, kind of nitpicky sort of things that prevent it from being a 5-star flick for me. But overall, it's still one of my favorites. I really enjoyed the film immensely, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.